I am the city's notorious viper. Xiao Hui despised my venomous heart, seeking to annul our betrothal and marry another. I laughed mockingly. Had I not been ruthless, who would have safeguarded the Xiao clan? The man who loved me to the bone in my past life now loathed me. Since that was the case, a viper must live up to her name. When the entire Xiao family perished, leaving only Xiao Hui, I ascended to power. He trembled as he asked, Xin Mingzhu, did you ever love me? Never. My Xiao lover died pierced by arrows in a previous life. 18-year-old Xiao Hui wore snow-silver armor, his hair pulled high in a ponytail. His eyes shone like stars, radiating youthful vigor. He declared loudly, this subject refuses to wed a woman with a heart of venom. My dark brows arched, and the hall fell instantly silent. In the capital now, besides me, there should be no other venomous woman. I am Xiao Hui's betrothed, Xin Mingzhu, daughter of the Grand Tutor of 3 dynasties. And also the notorious poisonous woman of the capital these past 2 years. I lowered my eyelids, neither hasty nor slow. Xiao Hui continued haughtily, the deeds of the Xin family's daughter these past 2 years. She is no longer the woman the servant wishes to marry. Before he could finish. Thud. The princess regent slammed her hand on the table, roaring, does General Xiao think he can simply refuse to marry this palace's lady-in-waiting? Xiao Hui cast a fleeting glance my way, his voice low and resolute. Xiao says he won't marry her, and he won't. 3 times he said he wouldn't marry me. I suddenly clenched my trembling fingertips, my nails digging into my palms. After waiting 2 years for him to return from battle, I'd aged into a 19-year-old spinster. The first thing he did upon his triumphant return was decide not to marry me. Whispers rippled through the banquet hall. As my father's tutor, my lord's princess, I could commit any misdeed without reproach. Yet now, publicly humiliated by my betrothed, what a spectacle. I lifted my teacup and glided toward him. Suddenly, I flung the liquid across his face. Crash, the cup shattered on the floor, its shards echoing through the hall. I smiled as sweetly as ever, General Xiao and I share such a cup. Water dripped from Xiao Hui's handsome face. A smile played at his lips as he defiantly replied, exactly as I wished. My heart clenched painfully. Even so, I bowed deeply to his majesty without flinching. This betrothal was Zhao's family reaching beyond their station. Now, I, Xin Mingzhu, declare before all present, it is my Xin family who withdraws from the Xiao family's marriage. Then, after curtsying, I turned gracefully and strode proudly out of the hall, leaving the crowd behind. I am a proud daughter of the Xin family. I will never be bullied. Indigo sky, fluffy snow. The north wind howled, its sound like rustling leaves. At the end of the long corridor stood a young woman. Her light blue robe draped over her like green bamboo in the snow, her beauty resembling a peony. She was He Qingzhu, the daughter of the demoted minister He, and also Xiao Hui's childhood sweetheart. How could Xiao betray me? I turned my gaze away indifferently, my hand trembling, palm stained with blood. If I am to be a poisonous woman, I shall be true to my nature. That blizzard consumed me for 2 days and nights. Shadows flitted by my bedside, coming and going. I kept recalling my 21st year, when I married Xiao Hui. By then, the Xiao clan had dwindled to just him. He was already the renowned General Ding Bei, his fame echoing across the land. My father's murder and the Xing family's decline left me as the capital's oldest unmarried maiden. The clan elders pressured my mother to accept a hasty betrothal to a lame man. Xiao Hui arrived in his black robes, stepping through the swirling velvet snow to propose. The noble families all mocked us as a perfect match. One was the dreaded ghost-fearing who had cursed his entire clan to death. The other was an old maid from a fallen family. After marriage, Xiao Hui was a man of few words, his gaze fixed on me, forever heavy and somber. I thought he was unhappy with this marriage. Yet each time he returned from battle, he would stand silently before my door for a long while. Only when I looked his way would he shift his gaze, nervously gripping the black gold broadsword at his waist, and call out in a heavy voice, Xin Mingzhu, I'm back. Then he would offer me a flawless Northwest Persian daisy. Then I thought, perhaps he cherished me a little. Before I could ask of his feelings, he was pierced through the heart by arrows before the palace hall. Spitting blood, he still raised his sword in defiance, glaring coldly and contemptuously at the emperor, refusing to yield or show weakness. Until he saw me, held hostage. Xiao Hui's icy eyes suddenly blazed crimson. His thin lips trembled for a long moment before he spoke. Xin Mingzhu, I'm sorry. I failed to protect you. A bitter smile touched his blood-stained lips. 17 years ago, during the Western Campaign, the Xiao family's army was annihilated. My father and brother died tragically at the frontier. I crawled my way to the capital, begging for food along the way. Had you not given me food and clothing, I would have frozen or starved to death on the outskirts of the capital. Foolish. That year, I distributed soup to aid countless people in the suburbs, yet none ever returned to repay their debt. Only he endured unimaginable hardships to marry me. My vision blurred, unable to see him clearly. I kept wiping away tears, over and over. Xiao Hui dragged himself forward, half kneeling. Crimson blood snaked across the golden palace floor like a serpent. Finally reaching me, he brushed away my tears, sobbing as he called, my wife, Mingzhu, do not weep. In my next life, Xiao Hui will love you, protect you, and trust you. My lips trembled violently, and all I could manage was, I. Also. Clang! The sword suddenly slipped from his grasp. He fell like a shattered statue, shattering in my arms. Holding his body as it grew cold, it took me a long time before I could finally wail with heart-wrenching grief. That life was too bitter. Perhaps because it was so bitter, heaven took pity on me and allowed me to be reborn 2 years ago. Back then, the Xiao family still stood, and father remained the esteemed imperial tutor. In my past life, Xiao Hui protected and cherished me. In this life, I would shield him completely. Thus, I became known to all as the poisonous woman. This reputation began when a palace maid spread rumors that I had brutally murdered the son of Minister He during a court banquet. Then, Minister He's daughter spread accusations far and wide, claiming I had disfigured her. Before long, Minister He was demoted for embezzlement and banished from the capital, dying en route to his exile. The He family's successive misfortunes were all suppressed by the princess. In the capital, people dared only whisper behind closed doors. I was madly in love with Xiao Hui and jealous of my childhood friend He Qingzhu, so I destroyed the entire He family. The rumors spread like wildfire, growing louder by the day. I didn't care. For only thus could the He sons never become imperial consorts, the He daughters never become imperial consorts, and Minister He never ascend to chancellor. Only thus would the He family not bring ruin upon the Xiao clan, nor condemn my father to exile and death. Had my mother not shielded me, my father would have cast me from our home countless times. Only when his disciple, scholar He, succeeded Minister He and thrived in court did he finally accompany me. How could my father, who served 3 dynasties, be nothing but an old stick in the mud? Outside the window, snow fell thickly, sounding like shattered jade. I opened my eyes. The fever had broken, I had returned to this world. Just then, Mother stood by my bed, instructing servants to send Xiao Hui away. I spoke softly to stop them, asking the servants to dress me carefully. I knew why he had come. Dressed in a crimson underrobe and skirt, draped in a snow-white fox-fur cloak, my cheeks flushed with rouge, my hair adorned with jewels and pearls, I glided into the main hall and took my seat of honor. When Xiao Hui saw me, a fleeting brilliance like stars flashed in his eyes. Then he quickly averted his gaze. I stared at him in astonishment. The proud young General Xiao Hui, crowned with jade, clad in the dark blue riding attire of the Fish clan, a black gold dagger at his waist. Truly a young knight-errant in golden bonds, utterly self-satisfied. Yet within me, an endless sense of dissonance surged. In my past life, Xiao Ling was a grim, all-black-clad warrior bearing the vengeance of his clan's annihilation, cold and silent. This was a stark contrast to him now. Xin Mingzhu, that day in the Grand Hall, I acted too impulsively. Though Xiao Hui was apologizing, his thin lips were pressed into a straight line, his stubbornness unmasked. I lifted my teacup and replied casually, I heard that after I left that day, General Xiao requested the emperor to absolve He Qingzhu of her status as the daughter of a convicted minister. Xiao Hui's body visibly stiffened. He croaked, yes. Then he softened. The annulment in the Grand Hall was my own rash decision. It had nothing to do with Qingzhu. Please. Please tell me where Qingzhu is. Ask me to do anything. I will do anything. These were the very words he spoke when he came to the Xin family to propose in my past life. For them, he offended the emperor, squandered his family's fortune, and married me, an old maid destined for a cripple. This life, those words are for He Qingzhu. That day, upon seeing He Qingzhu outside the palace, I ordered the guards to take her away. The maidservants beside her dared not breathe a word. Seeing my silence, Xiaohui pressed urgently, "You disfigured Qingzhu, killed He Nan, destroyed the He family, why won't you leave her alone? Don't you fear retribution?" I smiled, the scars on her face have healed, haven't they? He frowned, lecturing me, but your deeds cannot be erased. Xian Mingzhu, these past years, you've clung to the Longzhu princess to act tyrannically in the capital. Why do you keep making mistake after mistake? Xiao Hui's eyes shimmered like stars, his disgust and disappointment equally raw. He whispered, clearly. Clearly 2 years ago when we met, you weren't like this. 2 years ago. I had just been reborn, threatening my father with death to force him into betrothal with him. On the eve of Xiao Hui's departure for war, he knocked on my window beneath the moonlight. That was our first meeting in this lifetime. Dressed in flamboyant red robes, his face still bearing a boy's innocence, he stammered hurriedly, "I just wanted to see the girl betrothed to me." I suppressed the smile tugging at my lips, gently brushing his earlobe as I teased him, "Now that you've seen me, what do you think?" His bright, clear eyes gradually clouded over, veiled by a blush as delicate as gauze. There was a certain charm to that youthful innocence. A cool spring breeze blew. After a long moment, he finally said, "I beg Miss Xian to wait for Xiao to return victorious." I chuckled softly, taking a camellia branch from my hand and gently pinning it to his gold-embroidered sash. "Pearl is willing to wait. My lord and I were destined in a past life. Beneath the moon, before the blossoms." The youth carefully cradled the camellia at his waist and fled in disarray. "And now? What does it matter?" I glanced at him indifferently, a cold smile curling my lips. "So, you think I'm a venomous viper, and that's why you fell for He Qingzhu? Let the world say I'm unworthy, I'll accept it. But not Xiao Hui. What right does he have to hate me, despise me, loathe me?" Seeing my cold expression, Xiao Hui frantically softened his tone, "I know. When you seized power for the princess and reorganized the northwestern provinces, you also used the opportunity to aid the Xiao family's grain supplies. So he knew. And yet he still publicly rejected the marriage? Did he know that without me, the Xiao family's 50,000 troops would have been annihilated and the entire clan wiped out? Then he would have crawled back to the capital, begging for mercy all the way. I asked softly, "If I said everything I did was for our two families, would you believe me? Had I not brought down the He family, the Xian clan would have faced utter ruin. Had I not manipulated the provincial officials, the Xiao family would have been wiped out." Hearing this, Xiao Hui's eyes flickered with confusion before he forced a bitter smile. "Xian Mingzhu, why bother weaving such nonsense?" Nonsense? Those were the excruciating pains we endured in our past lives. A bitter wind whipped across the hall. Xiao Hui's eyes, growing increasingly bewildered and panicked, reflected my tear-streaked face. His hands clutched at his brocaded sash as he stammered helplessly, "Xian Mingzhu, don't cry. Don't cry. I won't call off the engagement. Qingzhu has done me a favor, I must give her something to rely on. I won't call it off. I'll just marry her as a secondary wife, is that acceptable?" Secondary wife? I suddenly burst into laughter. At that moment, my mind cleared completely. People are shaped by their past experiences. In this life, Xiao Hui owes me a favor, yet he has never endured great suffering. He is not my Xiaolang. He is not worthy of being my Xiaolang. My Xiaolang endured unbearable suffering to save me from the sea of misery. He promised to love me, protect me, and trust me in the next life. He perished long ago in a past life. I brushed away my tears decisively, sneering contemptuously, "And you dare to ask?" He froze in shock. I rose and departed. Only a faint voice trailed behind, "If General Xiao agrees to my terms, He Qingzhu will be returned to you. As for the Xing family's past aid with provisions and supplies, that debt shall be repaid in due time." A cold wind swept in from the corridor. My heart plunged into an icy sea, my body swept away by the biting wind. Suddenly, I was enveloped in warmth that spread throughout my entire being. Mother's ample frame held me tight, her voice full of vigor as she scolded, "Mingzhu. That Xiao brat should have been beaten out of here with sticks." I leaned against Mother's embrace, sobbing and laughing, trembling for a long while. In this life, I still have my parents, the prestige of the Grand Tutor's household, the pride of the Grand Tutor's daughter, and the protection of the eldest princess. I must live well. Xiao Hui surrendered most of his military authority, pleading with the emperor to absolve He Qingzhu of her status as the daughter of a convicted minister. The young general abandoned everything for a beauty, becoming a celebrated tale in the capital. When I heard the news, I merely smiled faintly, understanding. It was both expected and left my heart as cold as ashes. Such was Xiao Hui's nature. In my past life, he too had defied the emperor's command to marry me. Only this time, I was not the one who saved him. The carriage stopped at the Grand Princess's residence. Though my body had not yet fully recovered, I came to attend to official duties. Inside, the eldest princess, Li Wangshu, sat on a couch sipping wine. Her features were delicate, her flying heaven hairstyle held by a single 8-treasure hairpin, radiating both noble grace and spirited elegance. She lifted her eyelids slightly, teasing, "TSK, look at you, your chin has become so sharp. As my lady-in-waiting, you nearly burned yourself to death over that foolish general." I smiled, eyes lowered. Before her, I was docile, composed, intelligent, and reserved. Li Wangshu, accustomed to my silence, remarked casually, "If you fancy military officers, wouldn't Gu Ke, who serves under me, be quite suitable?" I respectfully accepted the wine she offered. My expression remained composed, yet my mind was already weighing her words. Every utterance from Li Wangshu carried hidden meaning. Everyone says the princess is easygoing, but only I know how terrifying she truly is. She tapped her index finger lightly against her temple and added approvingly, "Still, you proved remarkably effective, persuading the Xiao family to willingly surrender half their military authority." This was the condition for He Qingzhu's release. In my past life, the Xiao clan was annihilated, allowing her to seize military control of the Northwest. In this life, Xiao Hui's youth and inexperience meant I secured half the Northwest's military power for Li Wangshu. I smiled and flattered her. How could any man compare to my sovereign? She clapped her hands in laughter. "Excellent! Excellent! This is my lady-in-waiting. This is the woman who can accompany me in great endeavors." I lowered my face and smiled softly. Li Wangshu's future ascension to the throne would be the greatest pillar of support for my Xian family. In the study of the princess's residence, I burned the midnight oil, completing the tasks that had accumulated over recent days. The princess's residence handled substantial sums of money, not to mention the numerous military farms and garrisons. Scrutinizing every detail was always time-consuming and mentally draining. By the time I stepped out of the residence, the moon had already dipped below the eaves. A tall, straight-backed man in gray robes waited before the carriage. His wheat-colored face was chiseled like stone, with slanted sword-like brows framing a high nose and deep-set eyes, an aura of fierce masculinity radiating from him. This was Gu Ke, the man Li Wangshu had mentioned. Born into humble origins, he had fought his way up through sheer determination to become a major general in southern Yunnan over the past 2 years. See? Li Wangshu's words always held some meaning. She truly intended to bring us together. Gu Ke strode forward, his robes fluttering in the breeze. His entire figure was bathed in moonlight as bright as day. Within his deep, piercing hawk-like eyes, a fleeting, almost imperceptible softness flickered as they fixed upon me. He addressed me respectfully, "Miss Xian, the Grand Tutor's residence seems unsettled lately." I shot him a glance and coldly took his arm to climb into the carriage. Military men certainly don't mince words. Indeed, ever since Xiao Hui publicly rebuked me in the Grand Hall, memorials accusing my father have snowed down upon the court. Especially scholar he, who showed no regard for past ties, standing in opposition to my father, it reminded me of the He family from my past life. But I wasn't worried. This lifetime, the Xian family has Li Wangshu's protection. Later, whenever I visited the Grand Princess's residence, it was Gu Ke who escorted me. The Grand Princess would occasionally bring it up, "Why not consider General Gu? He once served as a groom in the Xian household and has long held affection for you." I knew this wasn't idle chatter, but a subtle warning. Winter's chill lingered as spring's first breath stirred. I found myself back at that dilapidated temple on the city's outskirts, 2 years prior, with cold winds whipping through every crack. Half of Xiao Hui's military authority had already passed into Li Wangshu's hands. Tonight, I will return He Qingzhu to Xiao Hui. But my mother has fallen gravely ill. No medicine can revive her, she remains unconscious. The servants say He Qingzhu, imprisoned in the rear courtyard, stumbled upon my mother while attempting to escape. In her delirium, she raved about the terrible deeds I had committed, declared the Xian family's inevitable downfall, and claimed scholar he had already suspended my father from duty. Overwhelmed by grief, she fainted and never regained consciousness. He Qingzhu should never have crossed me. Inside the dilapidated temple, she slumped to the floor, eyes wide with terror as guards approached bearing a jar of pungent potion. I curved my lips into a faint smile. If I can disfigure you once, I can do it again. I never promised to return a still beautiful childhood sweetheart to Xiao Hui. In this life, I am a poisonous woman, and I intend to be true to that role to the very end. The temple's broken statue crashed to the ground with the biting night wind. He Qingzhu looked at me tearfully, her expression half laugh, half cry, see? Even the gods know you're a venomous viper, Xian Mingzhu. Stop this. I lifted a corner of my hood's gauze veil, meeting her gaze with cool detachment. She continued her sharp words with feigned gentleness, Xian Mingzhu, you were born noble. Why did you kill my brother without cause? Why disfigure me? Why destroy the He family? Oh, without cause? Had I given you breathing room, it would have been like the previous life, leading my Xian family to utter ruin. In the past life, He Nan became a prince consort only because someone exposed his affair with the eldest princess at a palace banquet. Oh, was your brother truly innocent? Forcing the eldest princess with drugs is a crime punishable by execution of the entire family. He Qingzhu's face flashed with panic at being called out, then she pressed on, then why did you disfigure me, ruining my chance to enter the palace? You were already betrothed to Xiao Lang back then. I laughed at her. Did you not vow to risk life and limb for Xiao Lang? Why then covet the palace's riches? In my past life, consort he gouged out my eyes, poisoned my throat, and dismembered my body. She swore in the underworld that Xiao Hui would meet me without recognizing me. In that past life, it was also her brother, He Nan, who murdered my father. He stripped my father naked and paraded him through the streets, crushing his proud spirit until he took his own life. My father, 5 parts cunning, 7 parts integrity, 10 parts pride, couldn't even have his body laid to rest. In this life, how could I ever let the He family have an imperial consort or a prince consort? 2 years ago, I saved the eldest princess when she was drugged, killing He Nan. I also had He Qingzhu's face disfigured. Unwilling to waste more words, I gave a single glance, and the guards poured all the poison onto her face. A sharp crackling sound echoed. Her skin instantly melted away, her once beautiful features reduced to a bloody, mangled mess, reeking of burning flesh. A piercing scream echoed across the entire mountain. The previous knife wounds could heal. But was there any hope for a face completely scorched away? Stop! A clear voice rang out from within the temple. Silver moonlight spilled through the broken window lattice. It illuminated the entire temple, and Xiao Hui in the corner. Perhaps the moonlight was too reminiscent of a past life. In a flash, I saw Xiao Hui in his dark armor, his hand resting on his black gold greatsword, staring at me awkwardly. What a pity! The newcomer's silver crown gleamed, his torch-like eyes radiating arrogant spirit. I nearly forgot. He wasn't my Xiao Lang. When that familiar black gold broadsword, its sharp blade tempered like ice, pointed at me, I couldn't help but chuckle. In my past life, this blade had been mine to toy with countless times. Little did I know this lifetime it would seek only my death. Had Gu Kei not appeared, I fear Xiao Hui would have personally carved me into 1,000 pieces. After all, He Qingzhu, once renowned throughout the capital for her beauty, had become a demonic specter. Xiao Hui's once bright eyes now held only bone-chilling coldness. Gritting his teeth, he demanded, Xian Mingzhu, why do you remain so stubbornly deluded? Why must you persist in your reckless actions? I covered my mouth with my sleeve and sneered, weren't you standing idly by behind the temple, wanting to hear whether I'd truly committed all those crimes? At least He Nan's death wasn't entirely innocent. If your childhood sweetheart hadn't been barred from the palace, would she really have journeyed all the way to the northwest to save you? He seemed struck at his core, his face flushing crimson, yet he still growled, But you shouldn't have. Shouldn't have disfigured her face. He Qingzhu cried out in pain. Xiao Hui shot me a fierce glare before rushing to support her. This lifetime Xiao Hui loved with blunt honesty, and hated with equal directness. Gu Kei pulled me away swiftly. The carriage sped off. Inside, Gu Kei sat stiffly beside me, silent. Recalling Xiao Hui's glare at me and his concern for He Qingzhu, I couldn't help asking, Gu Kei, I destroyed the entire He family. Am I truly that cruel? Truly, they never did me any harm. After a long moment, I closed my eyes wearily and sighed, but my conscience is clear. Even if others call me vicious and unreasonable, I have no regrets. The He family's schemes failed this lifetime not because they were virtuous, but because I struck first, cutting the weeds at their roots. Gu Kei murmured softly, whatever the young lady wishes to do is justified. I trust you. I asked, did the princess send you because she fears I might spare He Qingzhu's life, thereby jeopardizing the military authority just entrusted to me? Gu Kei's stern face gave a slight nod. I glanced at my blood-stained fingertips with a bitter smile and asked, I keep wondering, how could He Qingzhu possibly have the ability to journey alone to the northwest? He gently turned his gaze upon me. As I had suspected, his voice rang out like the clang of iron. He Qingzhu traveled westward under the protection of the princess's men. His face was also healed by the princess. My guess was correct. I wasn't surprised that Li Wangshu used He Qingzhu to tear apart my relationship with Xiao Hui, preventing the Xiao and Xian families from uniting through marriage so she could control them both. I just felt a bit desolate. I always thought that as fellow women, I plotted for her, helped her ascend to power, and that she and I would share a thread of mutual understanding and appreciation. I always believed Li Wangshu was my pillar of support, but I was wrong. I was merely her blade. You're heartbroken. Gu Kei leaned in, like a fierce tiger sniffing cautiously, kneeling awkwardly beside my skirt hem. The carriage swayed gently along the mountain path. Through the swaying curtains, the cold white moonlight enveloped him completely. In Gu Kei's eyes as he looked up at me, tiny shards of light flickered. I glimpsed the hidden, restrained twists and turns of his heart. Li Wangshu said Gu Kei once worked as a stable hand for the Xian family and had long harbored feelings for me. As if to fulfill those words. In this life, the love and unwavering faith in his eyes were laid bare. After a moment's daze, I smiled faintly and brushed the dust from his shoulder. His eyes flashed with sudden brightness, looking at me with flattered surprise. Rather than beg for the princess's charity, I'd rather be the one wielding the blade. This blade, Gu Kei is the most fitting for it. I asked gently, Gu Kei, will you marry me? After my father walked on eggshells for days under suspension, the imperial guards finally raided the Grand Tutor's residence. That day, Li Wangshu sent word asking if I would marry Gu Kei. I agreed. Had I refused, the entire Grand Tutor's household would likely have been imprisoned. Li Wangshu was pleased with my sense of the times. Gu Kei's heart belongs entirely to you. Naturally, I must find my general a beloved. She propped her chin, smiling haughtily. Military men are the most deeply devoted yet foolish. First, Xiao Hui abandoned his military power to save his childhood sweetheart. Now, Gu Kei pledges his loyalty to marry a noble lady. When Gu Kei is infeft as a marquis and appointed chancellor, you shall be the marquise, shall you not? She waved her hand from her lofty perch as servants presented an exquisite box. This pair of peony gold hairpins is for you. May you enjoy 100 years of bliss. I accepted the pins with a smile and fastened them in my hair. She smiled with satisfaction at my servile deference. To her, I was not even a blade, merely a bone to tether her hunting hounds. At the start of spring, the emperor formally betrothed me to Gu Kei, the great general of Yunnan. The entire capital mocked me. Xiao Hui stood beside his childhood sweetheart, the heavenly beauty Lady He. Yet I was to marry Gu Kei, a rough-and-tumble warlord who'd once been a stable hand, born of humble origins. Alas, they knew not. The celestial miss he now wore a face like a demon. The Xiao household still hadn't announced the marriage to He Qingzhu. Yet the imperial match couldn't reverse my father's decline in court. It wasn't that my father was useless, but that Li Wangshu no longer needed him. He Xiang held sway like a blazing sun, gripping power tightly. Consort, he dominated the harem, ruining countless concubines. It mirrored the He family's fate in my previous life. The aristocratic families sensed the Xian family's waning fortune and excluded me from several lavish banquets for noble ladies. I did not retaliate against those families, even sending rare flowers for them to admire during the feasts. My father chose to retire at the height of his power, returning to his hometown, thus avoiding the risk of demotion he faced in my past life. I abandoned my ruthless and flamboyant ways, losing the essence of a poisonous woman. I quietly tended to my unconscious mother at home and assisted father in receiving disciples who came to bid farewell. Yet my heart remained loyal to the Shao family's valor, so I wrote a letter detailing the defensive preparations for the northwestern provinces and sent it to them. All was proceeding steadily. Before long, my mother passed away. But Gu Kei was about to march to war. Li Wangshu issued an imperial decree: regardless of mourning, I must marry as scheduled. The capital's folk only laughed at my pitiful plight. With the Xian family's decline, even a confidant like me could only serve the eldest princess diligently, not even mourning was permitted. They made such a fuss. What's so important about mourning? Mother would understand. 2 days later, I was to be married. Leaning my chin on my hand, I sat by the window, listening to the soft wind and gentle rain. I calmly traced the patterns on my wedding gown, feeling not a shred of joy. A shadow fell across my vision. I looked up. Just as when I first saw him in this life, Xiaohui was tapping at the window under the moonlight. Moonlight mingled with the fine rain, hazy and distant. I almost thought it was a dream. Xiaohui's voice, tinged with regret, shattered the dreamlike stillness. About your mother. I'm truly sorry. I snapped back to reality and casually reached to close the window, but he stopped me. A fresh scent of lush grass wafted from him, not the bitter medicinal smell of past wounds. I gave him a fleeting glance. Yet he asked, "Are you truly to marry Gu Kei tomorrow?" I laughed at him. A marriage decreed by His Majesty, how could it be false? Anxious creases formed between his long brows as he pressed urgently, "Your mother passed just a month ago, and the Princess Dowager demands your marriage. Everyone knows she merely seeks to harness the Xian family's influence to pave the way for Gu Kei." I adjusted my hairpin and scoffed. How can you now blame the Princess Dowager? Or blame Gu Kei? Had you not stubbornly insisted on breaking off the engagement, none of this would have happened. He froze, as if struck by sudden realization. What on earth was this attitude? He bit his lip in frustration, then flushed crimson and blurted out urgently, "Xian Mingzhu, I take it back. Even if you have a heart of venom, I still want to marry you." I couldn't help but laugh aloud. You were the one who broke off the engagement. You were the one who wanted to marry me as a secondary wife. And now you're the one changing your mind. Why don't you ask if I'm willing? Or if you're worthy? His cheeks flushed crimson as he defended himself, both anxious and embarrassed. I broke off the engagement because Qingzhu had done me a favor and wanted to marry me for support. And these past 2 years, I've always hated evil, so I couldn't understand why did you become such a vicious woman? Xiaohui abruptly shed his awkwardness, his eyes burning with the frank intensity of youth as he looked at me. He declared plainly, "But when you were about to marry, I realized it was my own immaturity. I had already seen the one I loved 2 years ago, yet only now do I truly understand." I raised an eyebrow sarcastically. "So because you've changed your mind, I should be grateful? Besides, whether there's any gratitude or not, wouldn't it be better for you to find out?" I gently closed the window once more. Xiaohui stared at me through the gradually narrowing gap. I still offered a final reminder: I honor the valor of the Shao family's army. I only ask this: be cautious in all matters during future campaigns. The moment the window closed, his Adam's apple bobbed. He parted his lips but no words came out. In the end, 1,000 unspoken words condensed into a single tear, pulling in his eye socket, drowning the stars that once shone within. My heart fluttered with unease. Just a little. But I was not wrong. Mother begged me to be reborn. I was meant to shine brightly in the Hall of Honor, to enjoy majestic glory. When mother was gravely ill, she spoke her only lucid words, my Wanner died so tragically for Xiaohui. I prayed before the Buddha for 20 years, begging that my little daughter might have a life free of hardship, even if it meant trading my own future lifespan. It was broad daylight, yet I felt as if struck by lightning. Yes, I had forgotten, after my death in the previous life, mother lived another 20 years, a long life indeed. So healthy and optimistic, how could she die from just a few words? I sat silently by her side for a day and a night, reflecting carefully on everything. Causes in the past life, consequences in this one. It was never heaven's mercy. It was mother kneeling before the Buddha for 20 years in my past life, trading her own lifespan for my chance at rebirth. Therefore, I, Xian Mingzhu, must enjoy the honor of a noble family and a life free of worry. Only then can I repay my dearest kin. As for Xiaohui, this life, I have settled all accounts with him. On the day of my wedding, gongs and drums cleared the way, their sound echoing through Suzaku Avenue in the capital city, a sight of great pomp and circumstance. Apricot rain, pear clouds, beneath the spring breeze. Gu Kei, clad in a crimson brocade wedding robe, sat upright on his steed, spear in hand, his jet-black hair and crimson sash fluttering in the wind. Gone was his former roughness, he resembled a jade-branched tree. Those sharp, icy eagle eyes were now as bright and gentle as the moon. Was marrying me truly such a blessing for him? The galloping hooves shattered the festive clatter. A clear, resonant voice rang out, Xian Mingzhu. Do you truly wish to marry General Gu? If not, if you only seek shelter for the Xian family, I, Xiaohui, will take you away today. The words barely finished when a black gold broadsword flung open the bridal sedan curtain. Revealing the face of a young man brimming with pride and arrogance, Xiaohui exclaimed urgently, I investigated. The ambush on me was orchestrated by the princess. That so-called life-saving favor was all a setup. I was wrong. What good does his regret do now? Just then, a woman broke free from the guards and rushed forward. In the shoving, her hood slipped off. The crowd scattered in terror. The newcomer's face was a mess of rotting flesh, her eyes darting wildly in their sockets like a demon's. It was He Qingzhu. She dared to come provoke me? No longer weak and delicate, she lunged at Xiaohui like a madwoman, wailing, Xiaolang, Xiaolang. Is it because of her you've delayed marrying me? Xiaohui pushed her away with disgust, snarling, you lied to me. He Qingzhu's eyes widened in despair before she lunged at the sedan chair, is it you? Ever since you became engaged to Gu Kei, Xiaolang has been distracted. Xing Yue hurriedly pulled her away. What filthy trash dares harass my mistress? She rambled incoherently, clearly, Xiaolang and I were childhood sweethearts. We were only waiting for his triumphant return to marry. Why did Xian Mingzhu have to meddle? If not for my interference, you'd never have waited for his victory. In the struggle, Xian Yu shoved her to the ground. Her flabby face glistened with blood as she turned to wail at Xiaohui, I thought if she harmed me, you'd take pity and marry me. Xiaohui remained coldly indifferent, refusing to look at her. I couldn't be bothered to argue further. Patting the sedan chair, I ordered, Gu Lang, lift the sedan. Xiaohui reached out to stop it, his eyes blazing like a cluster of fiery flames as he stared at me. His tone was both haughty and desperate, Xian Mingzhu, didn't you say we were destined in a past life? I sneered, what fate are you talking about now? In this world. I am not me, and he is not him. Waves of despair washed over his clear eyes. As he stood frozen, Gu Kei suddenly thrust his spear forward, knocking him aside. He staggered back several steps, the corners of his eyes sharp and reddened. He spat at Gu Kei, she doesn't truly love you either. Gu Kei remained expressionless, replying calmly, Gu does not care. Had I not seen the veins bulging on his hand at my side, his knuckles turning white, I might have believed him. I lowered my gaze, a faint smile touching my lips. This is more like it. All these years have not been wasted. I ordered, raise the palanquin. Xiaohui burst into laughter. The youth's resentment boiled over into fury, and he spat out a curse, Xian Mingzhu, I wish you a long, lonely life. Youthful ignorance. If curses held power, why would my past life have ended with the He family destroying me? And why would this life see the He family destroyed by me? I slowly lowered the curtain. Outside the palanquin, the festive music resumed its clamor. A wave of weakness surged from my toes, trembling upward until it reached my heart. The moment I stepped into the bridal chamber, Gu Kei hurried in behind me. He knelt slowly beside my legs. I lifted the bridal fan and lowered my head to look at him. The rough, valiant General Gu was gazing up at me, his eyes steady and focused. The red candles cast flickering shadows. His eyes closed, filled with a bitter unease, before a trembling voice finally escaped. I never dared dream of plucking stars or chasing the moon. He cradled my hand as if it were a precious treasure, lightly kissing each finger, then moving up to my wrist. But you didn't leave with him. You didn't abandon me. That's truly wonderful. He truly cherished me. He must have deeply admired me too. I gently stroked his cheek in response. His usually unyielding eyes glistened with tears, his hot breath lingering timidly around my wrist. The next day, Xiaohui ignored my advice and the letter and stormed off in a huff, his whereabouts unknown. The fate of the Xiao family was now beyond my reach. In the second year after marrying Gu Kei, Li Wangshu's prophecy came true. I became a marquise. Thanks to the eldest princess's patronage and my father's vast network of disciples, Gu Kei was enfeoffed as Marquis of Pingnan. 3 years later, the 20,000 Xiao family troops, along with Zhao's father and elder brother, perished in siege after their reinforcements were halted. At that moment, I was tending to the cold palace gates. Hearing the news, I stumbled in a daze. If one does not constantly fight against fate, it will inevitably lead to the same outcome as in a past life. I prevented the He family's downfall only to have the Xiao family meet the same fate. By preventing the Xiao clan's annihilation in the Western campaign, I invited their destruction by the Chang tribes. Li Wangshu must be plotting rebellion. The Xiao clan's downfall will shatter the emperor's military loyalty. Once he consolidates power, Li Wangshu will march on the capital with elite troops from Yunnan and the northwest, claiming to purge the court of corrupt ministers. I returned to the Marquis's residence late. Several lanterns before the gate swayed and flickered in the wind. They illuminated the endless, deep-shadowed blue stone path. They illuminated the utter coldness and desolation radiating from the approaching figure. He was clad entirely in jet black, his gaze heavy and malevolent. He wore a black cape, bound with a white sash. Step by step, he advanced with great difficulty. Drops of blood trailed along the winding stone path. It was exactly like Xiaohui in his previous life. Master, with such a karmic bond to this second young Master Xiao, why did you save him? Xinyue muttered reproaches as she helped apply medicine to Xiaohui's wounds. I simply watched him silently, not once looking away until the sky turned the color of fish belly. Xiaohui awoke. When he recognized me, his eyes welled with tears. His parched lips trembled, then released a sob. The once dashing and carefree young General Xiao had crumbled into dust. My heart surged with inexplicable emotions, grief, joy, longing, and resentment. He had endured life's greatest suffering. I quickly lowered my lashes, refusing to look at him. You're gravely wounded and need many more days to recover. I gathered my sleeves and rose. I'm sorry. His voice was as low and hoarse as Xiaolang's. I tightened my sleeves and drew several shallow breaths. He continued, had I heeded your words back then, the Xiao family would not have fallen into this predicament. I glanced sideways, my tone cool. General Xiao, it is not too late for repentance now. In the dimly lit room, his anguish faded quietly with a single hot tear, leaving only a hollow, deathly stillness in his eyes. I smiled. Within that smile lay mockery, bitterness, resignation, and a hint of pity. Finally, I departed. The home mansion's corridor stretched long and silent. A path that once took half a cup of tea to traverse now consumed more than a full cup. Gu Kei approached with measured steps, his gray robe adorned with python-patterned tassels fluttering in the breeze. I lowered my gaze. You're back? Instead of maintaining his usual respectful distance, he drew near, his chin nearly brushing my ear. His warm breath trembled against my cheek. My lady, why do you not dare look at me? Only then did I lift my eyes to meet his. Gu Kei's sharp features held a hint of tender resolve, his lowered brows softened into a gentle smile. 3 years, our time together hadn't exceeded a single month. I'd long grown accustomed to this blend of familiarity and strangeness in him. I took an imperceptible step back. Your return to the capital at this time. Is it because of the princess? He nodded solemnly. If that is the case, I said, then rest well. His arm clamped around mine, holding me fast as if to prevent my departure, firm yet gentle. He asked, My lady, did you not miss me after a year apart? And why did you avoid meeting Xiao Hui's gaze just now? Gu Kei was quite adept with me. These past 3 years, I remained in the capital to continue serving the eldest princess. She couldn't bear to part with such a capable hand, yet needed me as a hostage to restrain Gu Kei. Imperial households squeeze every last drop from their subjects. When an embroiderer favored by the emperor was murdered by consort he fell into despair and abandoned state affairs. For 3 years, the treacherous minister he dominated the court, plunging the empire into chaos. Consort he slaughtered imperial heirs, banishing countless concubines to cold palaces. While I managed Li Wangshu's grain reserves, farmlands, Yunnan silver, and northwest military provisions, I also distributed relief and soup in the name of the Marquis of Pingnan's household. Gathering noble women from my social circle, I aided the families of disgraced ministers and exiled consorts, earning considerable goodwill. People gradually forgot my former reputation as a poisonous woman. When speaking of the Pingnan Marquis's wife, they only said she was kind-hearted, benevolent, shrewd, and capable. All under heaven knew that Marquis Gu and the Marquis's wife had hearts devoted to the realm, great vessels for the state. Yet Gu Kei, who had always been obedient, showed a hint of forcefulness toward me today. In the past, he always slept on the imperial consort's couch in my outer chamber. Today, however, he pulled me onto the bed at noon. His deep, ocean-like eyes were heavy with emotion. He tore at my clothes with restless urgency, yet hesitated, unable to go further. He could only stare at me, frozen in place. His hot breath, coarse and low, washed over my lashes. I knew he was unsettled by Xiao Hui's return. I knew what he wanted. For me now, anything that could be resolved with sleep was no great matter. After 3 years of marriage, we had only now become true husband and wife. Outside, the sky was azure and the sun bright. Within the bed curtains, the light was dim and indistinct. His wheat-colored skin glowed with the freshness of soapberry, those cold, hawk-like eyes now shimmering with tenderness. As fierce as he was, he felt like a cool, intoxicating fragrance, teasing desire to its peak. Intertwined breaths filled the space between us. As Gu Kei handled me with both gentle roughness and restrained abandon, the taut muscles across his back rose and fell. In my haze, I sank deeper and deeper. As the sun sank into the golden depths of dusk, clouds gathered and rain poured, leaving us utterly spent. He truly was perfect in every way. Gu Kei kissed my forehead before being summoned away by the eldest princess. I lazily draped myself in my outer robe, sitting in the courtyard watching fish play in the slanting sunlight. My body and mind were sated with languid contentment, part comfort, part weariness. Power and desire are inseparable. Naturally, I also savor physical pleasure. At some point, Xiao Hui appeared in the distance. But I no longer felt the dazed uncertainty and guilt I'd experienced upon seeing him yesterday. In this world, he is not him, and I am not me. In my past life, I was a drifting young lady. In this life, I am a cunning vixen, master of my own destiny. I adjusted my robes, smoothed the waterfall of black hair at my side, and strolled before him. His pale lips parted, uttering only a hoarse whisper, Xin Mingzhu. I offered comfort, the Xiao family, loyal and brave, this should not be their end. Xiao Hui's somber eyes rippled with emotion, his gaze finally settling on the suggestive marks upon my neck. His eyes flickered briefly before averting, as if words were caught in his throat. I tilted my face up to him with a smile. General Xiao, would you care to discuss matters of great importance? As I spoke, I pinned a camellia blossom to his sash. Gu Kei had been summoned by the Princess Regent and remained absent for several more days. Xiao Hui, however, was placed under the watchful eye of Gu Kei's trusted confidant, and I could no longer see him. On our wedding day, Gu Kei was only relieved that I hadn't left with Xiao Hui. 3 years later, he desired my heart to belong solely to him. Human greed only deepens with time. Gu Kei and I quarreled, and I ordered Xiao Hui sent away. Gu Kei summoned every servant in the household and had them flogged before my eyes, then confined me to my quarters. Princess Li Wangshu, under the banner of purging the court of corrupt officials, led armies from Yunnan and the northwest straight into the imperial palace. On the eve of the march, every lamp in the mansion burned bright. My confinement lifted. Clad in a crimson cloak embroidered with swirling bats and a golden crown, I received orders to accompany the army into the palace, to welcome our sovereign to the throne. It was the imperial palace from my past life dream. Chaos. Bloodshed. The golden hall, bathed in the setting sun's glow, mingled with crimson yet held in eerie majesty. Beside the dragon throne, consort he supported Chancellor He, her eyes filled with terror as she pleaded to Li Wangshu, "Princess, you promised to protect my entire He family." The aged Chancellor He looked utterly terrified, bearing none of the traits of a so-called treacherous minister. I gazed intently at the jade seal in my hand. Both times, the purge of the court's corrupt elements had been orchestrated and performed by Li Wangshu herself. Li Wangshu now wore golden armor, her hair bound high, her serene features radiating imperial authority. A single glance from her was enough for her men to surround the two. I raised the jade seal to step forward, but she waved me back. Then, outside the hall, Gu Kei led men wielding swords, escorting Xiao Hui into the chamber. Xiao Hui, who should have been outside the palace rallying the remnants of the Xiao clan, appeared here instead. I have heard that among the loyalist forces outside the palace, soldiers from the northwest sought to rebel. Fortunately, I had already dispatched Marquis Gu to capture their leader. Her gaze shifted indifferently to me, her words dripping with mockery at my stubborn foolishness. "Xin Mingzhu, you are truly foolish. Even as the Marquis's wife, you still think only of Xiao Hui?" I looked at Gu Kei in astonishment. "You betrayed me." Gu Kei's gaze was cold and hard, as if the husband who tenderly called me my lady just days ago never existed. I chuckled sarcastically. "Why? Gu Kei? Xin Mingzhu, you still harbor feelings for him? Am I, Gu Kei, so worthless and undeserving?" He said ruthlessly. "How could Xiao Hui ever be worthy of my betrayal of my sovereign?" Li Wangshu chuckled. "Xin Mingzhu, having served before this emperor for so long, why are you still so petty? Can mere love compare to power and influence?" Defeated, I mocked myself. Enough, enough, enough. Our bond is but obedience to imperial command. What love is there in that? Gu Kei gave me a blank stare. Then, with a sudden swing of his blade, Xiao Hui's blood spattered the ground as he collapsed. I felt bound by invisible ropes, my eyes wide, unable to move. Gu Kei dragged Xiao Hui's head, step by step, toward Li Wangshu, seeking his reward. The Xiao family served with loyalty and valor. This was no end for them. Xiao Hui failed me, but he did not fail the realm. This was no end for him either. I wailed with piercing grief. With the final threat eliminated, Li Wangshu's face finally relaxed. She turned away haughtily, her golden armor gleaming as she strode majestically toward the imperial throne. Outside the hall, shouts of victory already echoed. Everything lay within her grasp. Yet unexpectedly, warm blood dripped onto the steps. Startled, she looked down to see the blade piercing her chest. Gu Kei had seized the moment of presenting Xiao Hui's body to thrust a dagger into her heart. Li Wangshu swiftly twisted her wrist, thrusting the blade into the ground as she knelt with dignified grace. Gu Kei swiftly drew his blade, blood splattering over He Shi and her daughter. She turned in shock, her gaze fixed on me and Gu Kei. My tears had long since dried, leaving only a cold stare. Blood gushed from her nostrils, yet she asked haughtily, "Why? Why?" The eldest princess had calculated human hearts, calculated her estrangement from the Xian and Xiao families, calculated her debt of gratitude to Gu Kei for his recognition and patronage. That was what she believed, at least. In her past life, Gu Kei had joined the army after the Xian family's decline, distinguished himself in battle, and remained utterly loyal to her, becoming the sword that wielded her golden age. But in this life, the moment I was reborn, I went to borrow that very sword of prosperity, preparing it for unforeseen needs. When I first met Gu Kei at the country estate, his mother had just passed away, and the estate steward had broken his leg. I provided his mother with a fine coffin and a good burial plot. I healed his broken leg. I rescued his sister, who had been forced into being a concubine, and sent her to the Imperial Garments Bureau to become an embroiderer. Then I sent him off to join the army. Through the patronage of my father's old comrade in the military, he swiftly gained the favor of the eldest princess. From beginning to end, I alone was the one who extended mercy to Marquis Gu in his hour of peril. Thus, he remained loyal to me and cherished me deeply. Li Wangshu's sword flashed like lightning. All were astonished by the profound depth of her concealed martial prowess. Gu Kei, caught utterly off guard, was slashed across half his body, blood soaking through his chest. The situation was utterly unpredictable. Thud. Li Wangshu's head rolled across the floor, blood spilling from the stump. Xiao Hui, feigning death, moved like a soaring crane, her hand lightning fast, severing the head. For the 20,000 soldiers of the Xiao family army, for Father Xiao and Brother Xiao, it was time for her to repay her debt. The setting sun bathed the golden hall in a blood-red glow, while pools of crimson blood spread across the floor, creating an eerily brilliant spectacle. I held my breath, my focus intense. It was all over. Holding the imperial seal high, I turned and shouted to the outside, "The emperor has passed away. The princess has ascended to heaven. The He family father and daughter have been executed." Executed! Waves of triumphant shouts carried to the fiery sunset sky. Below the hall, only Xiao Hui and I remained. It felt like a dream. Golden light streamed through the lattice windows at dusk, casting shimmering, golden shadows. Xiao Hui knelt half-bent, clutching the black gold blade at his waist. I said coldly, "General Xiao, henceforth the Northwest shall rely on the Xiao clan for defense. I hereby appoint you commander of the northern frontier, to remain stationed there permanently." His eyes held only emptiness. He closed them weakly, then looked back at me, his voice trembling with caution. "Xian Mingzhu, have you ever loved me?" "Never." My Xiao Lang perished in a past life, his heart pierced by a hail of arrows. I stepped out of the hall, leaving only Xiao Hui behind. His disoriented, grief-stricken figure cast a long, elongated shadow in the fading sunlight. Gu Kei waited outside the hall, blood dripping steadily from his body, pooling into a small lake at his feet. I raised my delicate eyebrows, covering my mouth with a smile. "Why haven't you tended to your wounds?" He offered no reply, only fixed me with a meaningful stare. I sighed. "Xiao Hui is departing immediately for the northwest without delay. Withdraw the archers." A satisfied smile touched Gu Kei's stern, sharp features as he waved his hand lazily. The autumn sun's late rays spilled pure gold across the sky, drowning the vermilion palace gates. Resigned, I reached out to support the wounded Gu Kei. This was the first time I had ever supported him. With a half-smile, I teased, "Gu Kei, I am a cruel person. I will remain relentless and ruthless in the days to come." He smiled at me and said, "I have long awaited my wife. But those words, that you and I are bound by imperial decree, I no longer wish to hear." I chuckled softly. "Gu Kei is my blade. With a blade in hand, one can wield power and ambition, striving for supremacy. Besides, he trusts me. He once said, 'Whatever the young lady wishes to do must have its reasons.' Gu believes you. Once our mission is accomplished, my first act will be to fulfill a vow. To my mother's most popular content, all on the WeChat public account, Hu Basher. When I was cultivating Buddhism in the imperial temple in my past life, I encountered He Qingzhu. The skin on her face had healed, but she no longer possessed her former beauty. She sat before the small Buddha hall, eating vegetarian meals and chanting sutras with profound devotion. Xinyue whispered in my ear, "Master," I asked the abbot. He said she's been praying for her childhood sweetheart, Xiao Erlang. He said he went off to war 5 years ago and never returned. I said, "You had her face healed, yet she went mad?" Pity flashed in Xinyue's eyes. He Qingzhu, a hateful, despicable, and pitiable man. A midnight dream a year ago brought back memories of my past life, nearly forgotten after death. After Xiao Hui's tragic death in my previous life, Li Wangshu stormed the palace under the pretext of purging the court of evil. It was He Qingzhu who drew his sword and killed the emperor. Li Wangshu immediately raised his blade and shouted, "The emperor has been murdered by the demonic concubine. He has passed away." The proclamation echoed from the Golden Throne Hall, spreading wave upon wave to the palace gates. "His Majesty has passed. His Majesty has passed." Beneath the grand hall, the setting sun's golden light streamed through the windows, bathing everything in a brilliant glow. He Qingzhu knelt half-bent on the ground, her hair adorned with a crimson peony that made her appear as fiery as a flame. She laughed bitterly. Princess, when the Shao clan was wiped out, you sought me out. I obeyed you, entered the palace, to avenge the Shao family. How laughable that Xiao Hui returned, and I could only watch helplessly as he built lofty halls, was in theft as a general, feasted guests, and married the Xing family's daughter. She snorted with derision. Good thing the emperor killed Xiao Hui. I'm not a laughingstock. See? I helped Xiao Hui kill the emperor. I tortured the Xing family's daughter in every way imaginable, dismembered her body, so they couldn't even recognize each other in the afterlife. Li Wangshu regarded her with the cold indifference one might reserve for an insect, his tone detached yet utterly commanding. He Qingzhu, you may go. As promised, I will not trouble the He family. But Li Wangshu's pretext for purging the court's corrupt elements was precisely to target the He family. How could he not? He Nan had schemed to frame her, becoming her imperial consort. How could she show mercy? He Qingzhu laughed bitterly. The imperial family knows no mercy. Heaven knows no mercy. She drew her blade across her throat, blood splattering onto Li Wangshu. Li Wangshu casually brushed away the droplets. He Qingzhu had always cherished her deep affection for Xiao Hui. Yet fate had intervened in her past life. Believing him dead, she entered the palace to avenge him. I saved Xiao Hui as he crawled back to the capital, binding him to me forever. But destiny was sealed. In this life, she too could not attain what she sought. Ultimately, a royal sibling feud within the Great Yong dynasty ended with both of them being killed by the mad consort He. Fortunately, the Li imperial family, lacking heirs, still had one royal descendant. It was the embroidery maid once deeply loved by the emperor, who miraculously survived and gave birth to the sole imperial prince while hidden away in the Coal Palace. Chaos erupted in the court. Grand Tutor Xin, who had retired to his hometown, returned once more to preside over the civil officials. This embroideress was none other than Gu Kei's younger sister, whom I had sent to the palace years ago. Gu Kei, now the esteemed Marquis of Pingnan, assumed the role of regent prince. On the day of the eldest princess's funeral, I pinned that pair of peony gold hairpins in her hair. To be killed by a mere pawn like me, I wonder if she'll tear the underworld apart. On the day the young emperor ascended the throne, I, clad in golden court robes, carried the infant prince to the imperial seat. The new emperor, supported by Grand Tutor Xin and Marquis Gu, was enthroned. The new emperor recognized Marquis Gu as his adoptive father and me as his adoptive mother, accepting Grand Tutor Xin's guidance. I sat majestically beside the golden throne hall, radiant and revered, beyond reproach. One day, my child too would sit rightfully upon the imperial throne. 5 years later, General Xiao Hui of the Northern Frontier Campaign slaughtered the Qianbei Hu tribes. Gu Kei finally consented, permitting him to return to the capital to report his achievements and celebrate his victory. The next day, as I reviewed memorials, an urgent military dispatch arrived bearing news of Xiao Hui's demise. In the final decisive battle, Xiao Hui suddenly burst into laughter, raised his black gold blade, and was struck through the heart by the last arrows of the scattered enemy troops. My crimson brush froze mid-stroke. Pierced through the heart. Vermilion ink, like blood, dripped onto the memorial, suddenly spreading in a haze. In my panic, I looked up at the sky. He was Xiao Lang. Only I was no longer his wife. Gu Kei suddenly embraced me. Then he placed his palm over my eyes and said, "This way I can't see." Cry. 1 month later, Zhao's army returned victorious. Xiao Hui's deputy presented a box containing a single, perfect Northwest Cosmos flower. A note beside it read, "My beloved Mingzhu, I only blame myself for remembering too late." The end.